of nectar, that is Krishna Katha. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So welcome to another exciting, lively, wholesome, wholesale market day of mercy, also known as Ekadasi. And if we are not excitedly waiting for Ekadasi, then I feel as though my life's goal is to somehow change the heart and the mindset one Ekadashi at a time, so that eventually we are kind of jumping and dancing for joy each time that we see that Ekadashi is coming, rather than looking at the calendar and going, oh no, Ekadashi is coming. Hopefully we can create an atmosphere where we rejoice about Ekadashi coming. So let's see what we win. Shastra understands that we need motivation. Shastra always understands that we are not pure devotees. And many times, Shastra isn't speaking to us from the point of view of pure devotees, otherwise we wouldn't have these stories. And so we have so many wonderful tales and histories and all kinds of personal accounts of the amazing things that have happened to people, living entities, moving, non-moving, all due to the benevolent mercy of our Shri Krishna. So Ekadashi is one such day where we can easily uptake a vrat to the best of our ability. Srila Prabhupada made things incredibly easy for us. Simply fast from grains and beans, that's it. You don't have to do much else other than that. Increase your chanting, increase your hearing, increase your loving of Krishna, and that's it. And as far as the grains and beans have gone, as we've evolved as a Krishna consciousness movement, we've kind of added on many do's and don't do's, as my spiritual teachers often say. We've added on so many subsets of rules and vegetables and things that will either break or uphold our vrat or our sankalpa, our vow, for these days. But Srila Prabhupada was incredibly simple at heart, and incredibly accommodating, and incredibly accepting. Simply fast from grains and beans. Easy, take some milk, take some fruits, take some root vegetables. Now Ekadashi becomes National Potato Appreciation Day. And just increase our hearing and our chanting. Increase the amount of times that we favorably think about our Krishna each day. And that's it. It really is one of the best bargains since Sri Nityananda Ram opened up the marketplace of the holy name within Kali Yuga. And I've been saying it all weekend, we New Yorkers really love a good bargain. We like good sales. We like wholesales. We like to buy things in bulk. And so now we have all the makings of a good sale for a New Yorker. Mercy is on sale, not even difficult to obtain. And it's on sale wholesale. So we can get as much mercy as we could possibly ever need and more, simply by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, simply by taking shelter of Shri Radha Murlidhara, Shri Gaurachandra, simply by taking shelter of Shri Radha Govinda Dev. So, let us see the glories of this Kamada Ekadashi, an Ekadashi which by its very name fulfills all desires. Sri Sutta Goswami said, O sages, let me offer my humble and respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Hari, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, by whose mercy I can describe the fast day that removes all kinds of sins. It was narrated to the devoted Yudhishthir by Lord Shri Krishna, and Lord Shri Krishna glorified the 24 primary Ekadashis which destroy sin. And now I shall recount one of those narrations to you. Great learned sages have selected these 24 narrations from the 18 Puranas, for they are truly sublime. Yudhishthira Maharaj said, O Lord Krishna, O Vasudeva, please accept my humble obeisances. Please describe to me the Ekadashi that occurs during the light part of the month of Chaitra, March, April. What is its name and what are its glories? Lord Shri Krishna replied, O Yudhishthira, please listen to me attentively as I relate the ancient history of this sacred Ekadashi, a history Vasishta Muni once related to King Dilip, the great-grandfather of Lord Sri Ramachandra. Sri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. King Dilip asked the great sage Vasishta, O wise Brahmin, I wish to hear about the Ekadashi that comes during the light part of the month of Chaitra. Please describe it to me. Vasishta Muni replied, O king, your inquiry is glorious. Gladly shall I tell you what you wish to know. The Ekadashi that occurs during the light fortnight of Chaitra is named Kamada Ekadashi. It consumes all sins as a forest fire consumes a supply of dry firewood. It is very purifying, and it bestows the highest merit upon one who faithfully observes it. O king, now hear an ancient story which is so meritorious that it removes all one's sins simply by being heard. Once long ago, there existed a city-state named Ratnapur, which was decorated with gold and jewels, and in which sharp-fanged snakes would enjoy intoxication. King Pundarik was the ruler of this most beautiful kingdom, which numbered many Gandharvas, Kinnaras, and Apsaras amongst its citizens. Among the Gandharvas were Lalit and his wife Lalita, who was an especially lovely dancer. These two were intensely attracted to each other, and their home was full of great wealth and fine food. Lalita loved her husband dearly, and likewise Lalit constantly thought of her within his heart. Once, at the court of King Pundarik, many Gandharvas were dancing, and Lalit was singing alone without his wife. He could not help thinking about her as he sang, and because of this distraction, he lost track of the song's meter and melody. Indeed, Lalit sang the ending of his song improperly, and one of the envious snakes who was in attendance at the king's court complained to the king that Lalit was absorbed in thinking of his wife instead of his sovereign. The king became furious upon hearing this, and his eyes turned crimson with rage. This pastime, as I was reading it and preparing for this lecture, was constantly reminding me that nothing that we think that we are dealing with within Kali Yuga is new. So I'll say that again. Nothing that we are dealing with within this age of Kali, this kind of darkened age of quarrel and hypocrisy, nothing is new. So when we think that everybody had it easier in bygone eras and millenniums and yugas, if this pastime is being narrated to the great-grandfather of Lord Sri Ramachandra, that is at least Treta Yuga. So we are going 2 yugas ago. And so 2.5, basically, because Kali already has some progressing that it's done. And so we see that 2.5 yugas ago, there were still envious co-workers. There were still envious co-workers willing to slander you to your boss. There were going to be people who were going to be so enamored with the love of their life that they simply couldn't get them out of their minds. I say this to remind myself and all of us not to be discouraged by simple material world terms and conditions. Yes, sometimes they're disheartening, but we shouldn't let them discourage us so much that we quit doing whatever we're doing. We shouldn't let that become a supreme obstacle to our devotional service, because it doesn't matter what time we will be born in. If we are in this material world, we will be subject to the terms and conditions of this material world, of which all of these things that we deal with now might come in some way, shape, or form right back around, and then we have to deal with them again, because living entities are living entities. So let's see, King Pundrik is now completely angry, eyes red with rage, which is so incredible that you could have an envious coworker go and complain to your boss, and then the boss takes it out on you, and they're red with rage because you sang the wrong note. Suddenly he shouted, "O foolish knave, because you were lustfully thinking of a woman instead of reverently thinking of your king as you performed your court duties, I curse you to at once become a cannibal." Okay, I said everything that we deal with now, we were dealing with back then. But there were some things that we were not dealing with now that they were dealing with back then. Because no matter how angry your boss is with you, luckily, we don't think. In 9 times out of 10, I would wager to guess that they don't have the power to turn you into a man-eating, crazed, cannibal demon. And so, we thank God for small miracles. O king, Lalit immediately became a fearful cannibal, a great man-eating demon whose appearance terrified everyone. His arms were 8 miles long. His mouth was as big as a huge cave. His eyes were as awesome as the sun and moon. His nostrils resembled enormous pits in the earth. His neck was a veritable mountain. His hips were 4 miles wide, and his gigantic body stood a full 64 miles high. Thus, poor Lalit, the loving Gandharva singer, had to suffer the reaction of his offense against King Pundrik. Seeing her husband suffering as a horrible cannibal, Lalita became overwhelmed with grief. She thought, "Now that my dear husband is suffering the effects of the king's curse, what is to be my lot? What should I do? Where should I go?" This demon, with his 8-mile-long arms, was reminding me a little bit of the Ramayana. When in the midst of the forest, Sri Ramachandra encounters kind of a similar man-eating demon with 8-mile-long arms, except for his mouth was in his belly and his eye was kind of situated. He only had one, and it was kind of situated at a weird angle, and he was covered with all kinds of interestingly demon skin fur. And it was kind of like if we had a cyclops, but worse, way worse. And he tries to grab Lakshman with one arm that is 8 miles long, and he grabs Sri Ram with the other, and he decides that he wants to eat them. And this demon was reminding me also a little bit of Kabanda, which was the name of that demon, who also was not originally a demon. Kabanda was also under the effects of a curse. So we see that there's a lot of effects of curses happening. And again, thankfully, not that we can see, the effects of curses have kind of lost their potency as the yugas have progressed. And so now we don't see such effective and potent and strong curses, also because nobody has the potency to give those kinds of curses, let alone bear the effect of such curses. But we do see how the mind can turn us into such a person, such a living entity, living under the effects of such a curse. where on the outside we still look the same as though we were before, but the mind has tricked us into identifying with all of the worst possible qualities that we could drudge up from the soul of a living entity. So while we might not be dealing with the outward bodily effects of curses, now somehow or other, and what they say is, in previous yugas, demons and demigods, or saintly people and those demoniac living entities, they were in different planets, and then they got closer, they were in the same kingdom, then they were in the same family. Now in Kali Yuga, demons and saints reside within the same body. Which brings to mind our wonderful Sri Krishna's preventative speech to Arjuna, reminding him that the mind can be the best friend or the greatest enemy. And as he also wisely reminds him that every living entity, from Lord Brahma, the very creator, down to the smallest ant, is struggling with the six senses, of which the foremost is the mind. So now we don't think curses are as potent. We don't think the effects of our actions are as potent because we don't see the repercussions as vividly. We don't see anybody turning into a demon with 8-mile-long arms and this spirit for cannibalism and all kinds of things. But it's incredible what the mind can do to a person or a people. In this way, Lalita grieved day and night. Instead of enjoying life as a Gandharva's wife, she had to wander everywhere in the thick jungle with her monstrous husband, who had fallen completely under the spell of the king's curse and was wholly engaged in terrible sinful activities. So this was not like Jada Bharat that we hear of within the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who even in the form of a deer, he could remember his own past saintly birth as great King Maharaj Bharat. But instead now, because the mind has identified with the body, this Gandharva Lalit was now completely identifying with his new role as this cannibalistic demon, which helps us to remember, what are we identifying with? What is it that we are allowing our minds to identify with? Who are we really? Are we this one body with these certain eye color and hair color and all of these different struggles and joys that come with each and every single body? Or are we living entities meant for service, meant for reviving our relationship with the Supreme Person? He wandered fitfully across forbidding regions, a once beautiful Gandharva, now reduced to the ghastly behavior of a man-eater. Utterly distraught to see her dear husband suffer so much in his dreadful condition, Lalita began to cry as she followed his mad journeying. By good fortune, however, Lalita came upon the sage Shringi one day. I was trying to research if this was the same Shringi that was present in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, but I think this is a different one. He was sitting on the peak of the famous Vindhyachala hill. Approaching him, she immediately offered the ascetic her respectful obeisances. The sage noticed her bowing down before him and said, "O beautiful one, who are you? Whose daughter are you, and why have you come here? Please tell me everything in truth." Lalita replied, "O great sage, I am the daughter of the great Gandharva, Viradanva, and my name is Lalita. I roam the forests and plains with my dear husband, whom King Pundarik has cursed to become a man-eating demon. O Brahmin, I am greatly aggrieved to see his ferocious form and terribly sinful activities. O Master, please tell me how I can perform some act of atonement on behalf of my husband. What pious act can I perform to free him from this demonic form, O best of the Brahmins?" The sage replied, "O heavenly maiden, there is an Ekadasi named Kamada, which occurs in the light fortnight of the month of Chaitra. It is coming up soon. Whoever fasts on this day has all his desires fulfilled. If you observe this Ekadasi fast according to its rules and regulations, and give the merit you thus earn to your husband, He will be freed from the curse at once." Lalita was overjoyed to hear these words from the sage. Lalita faithfully observed the fast of Kamada Ekadashi, according to the instructions of the sage Shringi, and on Dwadasi she appeared before him and the deity of Lord Vasudeva, and said, "I have faithfully observed the fast of Kamada Ekadashi. By the merit earned through my observance of this fast, let my husband be free from the curse that has turned him into a demoniac cannibal. May the merit I have gained thus free him from misery." As soon as Lalita finished speaking, her husband, who stood nearby, was at once freed from the king's curse. He immediately regained his original form as the Gandharva Lalit, a handsome, heavenly singer adorned with many beautiful ornaments. Now, with his wife Lalita, he could enjoy even more opulence than before. All this was accomplished by the power and glory of Kamada Ekadashi. At last the Gandharva couple boarded a celestial airplane and ascended to the heavens. Lord Shri Krishna continued, "O Yudhishthir, best of kings, anyone who hears this wonderful narration should certainly observe holy Kamada Ekadashi to the best of his ability. Such great merit does it bestow upon the faithful devotee. I have therefore described its glories to you for the benefit of all humanity. There is no better Ekadashi than Kamada Ekadashi. It can eradicate even the sin of ending the life of a Brahmana, and it also nullifies demoniac curses and cleanses the consciousness. In all the three worlds, among movable, and immovable living entities, there is no better day." I like that the ending says that among movable and immovable living entities there is no better day, because it reminds us that Ekadashi is not simply a day that comes around to give us grief and tell us that we can't eat bread. Ekadashi is a person. Ekadashi is a Devi. She is a wonderful goddess. And so it is so important for us to remember that when we honor Ekadashi, when we honor this goddess who has appeared, and her only wish is that all those who fast on her day will be benefited. They should have nothing to fear. She wants to wipe away all of the anxieties and eradicate all of the stress and the worries of those who observe the Ekadashi fast. Now, some people might say, there were many Vaishnavas, and it seemed as though within their lives they must have fasted on so many of these days. We can even take the Pandavas, for instance. Yudhishthira Maharaj is hearing all of these glories of these Ekadashis. We can surmise that he must have fasted at least on some of them. And yet somehow he went through so many trials and tribulations. Exile for so much of his life. His life was spent in and out of kingdoms, in exile in one form or another. At least 2-3 different times he's in exile. And then in hiding. And then having to take a lowly role. And then deprived of a kingdom. And then his wife was insulted. You can read about such things in epics like the Mahabharata. And I do urge everyone, please do so. Krishna Dharma Prabhu has written a really, really excellent, world-renowned version, which is so filled with Krishna Bhakti and so filled with devotion to Krishna that it really tugs at the heart. But this is his story. And so we might think, so you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to be fasting on this Ekadashi day, and she will wipe away all the sins and eradicate all the worries and stresses? However, Maharaj Yudhishthir and all of his brothers, I see that they had nothing but stressors in their lives. What is this seeming discrepancy? And how do we reconcile this seeming discrepancy? Within the pages of Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sri Narada Muni comes upon the Pandavas. And the Pandavas are engaged in a discussion. And that discussion is happening because Sri Krishna has just left Indraprasth, their magnificent kingdom. And they're thinking, how do we get Krishna back? And they think, well, we can send an envoy and tell him that we have a festival. They think, no, we just performed a whole Rajasuya Yagya. He won't come for another festival. And they're passing around a great many ideas. And finally, one of the Pandavas, I believe it's Bhima, says, tell him we're in trouble. What do you mean tell him we're in trouble? Tell him we're in trouble. We're in grave danger, in danger of losing our lives. He'll come immediately. They all looked at their brother, but we're not in trouble. Bhima says, by the time he gets here, we'll figure out another excuse. The most important thing is getting him back. These trials and tribulations and the stressors that they went through, to them, became their greatest ornament. To them, these stressors became wonderful ways for them just to see Krishna again. In fact, their mother, Queen Kunti, has prayed famously in her prayers, let those calamities come again and again. For by suffering those calamities, then we get to see you. And if we get to see you, then our lives are perfect. Have you ever been in a situation where life has forced you to chant really intensely? There is a certain feeling that comes with intense chanting of the holy name. And then when the situation is past, our chanting goes back to meh. As the kids say, our chanting becomes mid once again. Meh. But the minute that life re-enters the scene, then we start our intense chanting again. And it churns up all of the fire in the heart. It churns up. We are completely focused for as long as it takes, and we are using every sense that we possibly can use to be completely focused on the holy name. Life does this in two ways. Life does this by putting you in circumstances that make us extremely uncomfortable, and then also sometimes when your spiritual master is around. You know, notice the japa gets increased. You get so much. Somehow your whole devotional life gets a reboot and a repaint and a complete renovation, and everything is so perfect because there's a feeling. Guru Maharaj might look at my face, and what do we want him to see? Okay, well, I really don't want him to see that I've been slacking. And so if you are fortunate to have some preconceived plans that your Guru Maharaj is coming, you kind of start beforehand if you're smart. You start, okay, I know I can't just jump back on the best sadhana that I've ever had immediately. Let me start a few days in advance. So in this case, the Pandavas are saying, we'll use any excuse to get Krishna here, but we know for sure all of the other excuses, he might not be willing to come. But we know for sure he'll come if we tell him we're in trouble. If we tell him that life has made us so uncomfortable, Krishna will come running. He will drop everything that he's had to do anywhere else. He will run to us. Not only will he run to us, but he'll stay for some time until the problem is solved sufficiently. Let's tell him we're in trouble. Kunti Maharani says, let the calamities come again and again, for by having those calamities come again and again, we get the benediction of seeing you. So when we follow these Ekadashis with faith, and then life makes us uncomfortable, what if that is actually the benediction? Because the benediction is then we can call out with feeling. And if we get to call out with feeling, then Krishna comes running. And once Krishna comes running, what he says is, I don't even really like to give people bhakti, because once I give them bhakti and I come running, I can't leave them ever again. I only say that to say that it does not mean that if we follow this Ekadashi, life will never put us in an uncomfortable situation ever again. But once again, what is our mind identifying with? Is our mind identifying with the personality that says, you know what, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen, and I knew that God never does anything good for me. This is why I'm in this horrible predicament right now. I don't even know why I had any faith fasting on these days and chanting all of these rounds and doing all of these pujas and doing all of these things for good luck. Of course it wasn't going to work. Or do we identify with our minds with the mature spiritual vision, that of Prahlad Maharaj, who was willing to never give up? I don't care how uncomfortable life has ever made me. It never made me as uncomfortable as Prahlad Maharaj. Ever. Life never made me as uncomfortable as it made Sri Ramachandra uncomfortable. I haven't had to spend 14 years in any kind of exile living off of roots, and it was almost like Ekadasi fast every day for Sri Ram. Lakshman wasn't even eating at that point. He had given up eating, he had given up sleeping for 14 years, no problem. And Lakshman simply did that because he loved his brother. I want to be able to serve my Lord, my Sri Ram, my elder brother at a moment's notice. I won't even stop to eat or sleep. Life has never made me that uncomfortable. And Lakshman was not happy about that exile. But life has never made me that uncomfortable. I can't speak for anybody else, but what I do know is every time I read through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, I see people that life has been made so much more uncomfortable for than me. And yet, I find my ways to complain. But each Ekadashi, my hope is that I cut it down one less complaint. And I look at it just a little bit differently. Ah, life is making me uncomfortable. This means I can beg others to pray for me. And if I beg others to pray for me, and if I also pray for myself, and then if I also pray for others, then that just means more and more and more people are chanting the holy name. Then maybe it's not so uncomfortable. We have the instance of Lalit and Lalita, and Lalita was willing to do whatever it took to simply restore her husband back to his former glory. And it says that he was able to enjoy even more than before, because not only did it nullify the curse, but it cleansed his consciousness. And I can only imagine that that must have come with some tinge of devotion, because Ekadashi Devi never leaves us without some little handprint of devotion. And once we've received that handprint of devotion, that never leaves. Even for personalities like Ajamil, our Vaishnavacharyas comment in their many commentaries that he was saved because he had upon him the handprint of devotion. And no matter what, somehow he could bury all of his good qualities, but he couldn't rub off that handprint of bhakti. So it is my prayer that all of us somehow receive the handprint of bhakti upon us today on Kamada Ekadashi, whether big or small. And I pray that it never ever leaves us, no matter what we do or whatever we think we're doing. I pray that we never get in our own way. And I pray that these wonderful glories and pastimes will forever protect us with constant remembrance of our dearmost friend Krishna. Shri Ekadashi Devi ki jai, Shri Radha Murlidhara, Shri Gaura Chandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. Wonderful class, very inspiring. What's that on your forehead? Is that the handprint of Bhakti or Tilak?
My tilak, of course, you know.
Great, great. Thank you. Okay, dear devotees, it's your turn to shine, to ask questions. Maybe you'd like to reflect something back. Jeffrey Eckler asked a question that's above my pay grade. Can't even read it. Jeffrey Prabhu, please.
Yeah, that is a really cool question.
Hare Krishna, thank you for always bringing us back and reminding us to just maybe make one less complaint. That's a very good point. But my question is the and it's not just in this story, but in many stories we see these multipliers being in effect as sort of a storytelling function, but it also is just interesting to me. Having grown out of a Catholic tradition as a youth, you see in the Bible multiples of three everywhere, and in Vedic culture, it seems to be multiples of four. 16 rounds, 108, all these kinds of things appear a lot. So, is there like a significance to that?
That is
multiplier?
such a, yeah, that is really a really cool, fascinating question. I feel like, you know who would probably know the most scientific Shastric Sanskrit answer for that? It's like Hari Parshad Prabhu and Amarendra Prabhu. The both of them, I feel like, would know the actual Shastric reference and
Hmm.
the real scientific breakdown of it. As it goes for in storytelling, the measurement of a yojana is 8 miles. And so, with all of his measurements, they can be broken down into yojanas, half yojanas, or several yojanas. And so, my thinking is in telling this story, the unit of measurement that they would have been using would have been a yojana. And so, my guess is, especially in regards to this one particular story, yes, much easier when you're using this unit of measurement.
So rather than 8 miles long legs, he would have one
Yeah, it's
yojana
one yojana
legs.
per yeah.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
When you doom scroll on your phone, make sure you don't go into yojanas worth of feed. Jani Thai Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu, Temple Vasis, please.
Yeah. I have to admit, praying to Prabhupada what to say, but I don't feel anything particular. Just a very sweet class. Not only the content of the class, but the way Mataji speaks it with such sparkling joy and enthusiasm and faith. It's very refreshing. So thank you very much for your love for Krishna.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
We continue to bless you with pure devotional service.
Thank you, Adipurusha Prabhu. I have a reflection. I really appreciate how Chita Gopi explained that we shouldn't stand in our own way. I was like, Krishna is not deficient for sure. Why am I in Maya constantly? Am I a big time demon? Why is Krishna not defeating all these tendencies that I have? What's wrong? So that's I relate to that uh, point, Achyuta Gopi.
The
Thank you so much.
devotees asked Srila Prabhupada that question, why is it that Maya is so strong, we fall into Maya, and can't Krishna help us? And Srila Prabhupada's response was, you're always in Maya. It's just that sometimes you fall into Krishna.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe someone else is in my way. Maybe I don't know, my
Yeah.
spouse or a content creator on YouTube or something, or maybe Jeffrey Eckler. I don't know what it is, but I'm in Maya.
I mean, we love to not have the proper view of Maya Devi and her service. This is her domain. She's in her eyes, she's like, you came to my playground. You come to my playground, then you complain when you have to follow my rules. And Shri Krishna told you, better stay with me. We said, no, 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 no. I need to go
Mm.
somewhere else. It was us. I'm the problem.
Yeah, you created this material world. That's the answer my Guru Maharaj received from Prabhupada when he kind of challenged Prabhupada. Why is there evil in the world if Krishna is in charge? Why is there evil? Who created this mess? And Srila Prabhupada made big eyes and said, "You created this world." It was very profound. Jamuna Jaya has her hand up. Is Jamuna Jaya in Maya also? I can't believe.
Oh no, I am. I just want to thank you, Chichiko. You always remind us about the power of gratitude. Like in this, when you're saying, I mean, you were jokingly saying it, but it is true. We think like, my boss won't turn me into cannibal. It really is just a reminder of like to. My Guru Dev always says that gratitude is the breeding ground for any path of spiritual life. That without gratitude you can't grow. It's the fertile soil. So I always love that you remind us that these times have always been tough. We're not the Pandavas, and look what they go through to, not like, oh, woe is me, but then look at Queen Kunti. Can we do what she does with her woe is me? So such a beautiful point. Thank you for always reminding us of that every class.
No, Jamuna Jaya is filled with gratitude and sparkling enthusiasm. If there is one personality that is always like really imbibing the name of like a whole Jamuna River of gratitude and enthusiasm and a willingness to serve and somehow a smile through it all. Like I just like look around and like the world's falling apart. And then I get to a Thursday night kirtan and I turn and I see Jamuna Jaya and she's and I'm like, how is it possible that the planet's falling apart and she's just completely floating above it? Not at all, not at all disturbed. And also with the best profession ever. She had on a shirt the other day that said, I love clowns. And I was like, no, really, it's true. Because of Jamuna Jaya.
Yeah, Jamuna Jaya, you have no idea
Horrible.
what effect you have on us, Jamuna Jaya.
I seek your blessings. Thank you. You have no idea what effect you have on me. I felt so weird when I looked at the shirt. I'm greeting Radha Swami with the shirt. I love clowns on.
It was great.
He looked down and he kind of like, horrible. Gotta go
Jamuna
clap now,
Jaya
actually.
Devi. Jamuna Jaya Devi ki jai.
Jai.
Okay, temple room, please. Reflect, shine back. Maybe Arjuna Prabhu would like to speak. That would be super cool. Maybe he'd like to chuckle in line with Guru Sada and Shastra.
He chuckled.
Good.
He's always chuckling.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, the thread of these discourses about Ekadasi, someone's in distress. In this case, he took the birth as a cannibal, and then very nice that his wife was able to perform some pious activity to atone for his deviation. In this case, he was meditating on his wife instead of doing his service of singing for the king. So he was meditating on sense gratification, and then he received this reaction. And then she performed the austerity. And then, according to the story, they went to the heavenly planets. And of course, that's nice that they were relieved from the distressful situation. But we know, and of course Mataji knows, and we all know, that just atoning for a sinful reaction and finding yourself in a comfortable enjoyment situation is not a complete solution to the problem. And that we want to remember that Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, is indicating that engaging in devotional service fully, unceasing and unmotivated devotional service is really the only way to satisfy the self, satisfy Krishna, and it's the perfection of life. And aspiring to just get rid of our sinful reaction and go to the heavenly planets is something that we might be attracted to, but less than perfect. Yeah. I don't, maybe much you can say something about that. I always hear these stories and I think, oh, okay, they went to the heavenly planets. Cool, great. Okay, no, he's no longer a cannibal. Great. But what about devotional? No, what about devotional service to Krishna as the real solution, not just atonement for sinful reactions? Right? Any comments on that? I always had make the same comment on these. Who wrote this book anyway? Is this Prabhupada gave us this? Is it purport or just the text or?
So yeah, this one is just the text, and there are several books on the different Ekadashis that have come. And this one came from, I have to double check because usually it says which Purana it's from, but it is from one of the Puranas. But the amazing thing is the understanding that others had in these bygone ages to be able to understand these Puranas. But that's why I was saying, when it was said that he was able to enjoy better, even more than before, my hope was that came with a tinge of devotion. That was my hope for Lalita Gandharva, was that even over simply being granted his form again and being this wonderful heavenly singer is that it comes with some tinge of devotion, some whisper, a glimmer, even just the yearning for devotion, because, like we see in the case of Ajamil, it can protect us over lifetimes.
Tinge of devotion, ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you. Darshan time, dear devotees. Please turn on your cameras if you can.
Hey Govinda, our spiritual master, in the only way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. Below his feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, and by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. Jai.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Jani Tai Prabhu. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Acyuta Gopi, Devidasi, do you have a few minutes to stay if you're still here? Is she here? I don't see her. Oh, there she is. Acyuta Gopi. I'm sorry. It's my imperfection. I have a question. You mentioned in class how when we find ourselves in a troublesome situation and call out to Krishna sincerely, he comes running to us. I really marked it down, and I was like, yeah, when I'm in trouble and I call out to Krishna, I immediately feel his presence, and I'm happy that Krishna is present in my life. But once the calamity is over, I often, all the time, every single time, I gradually drift back into my old habits, and Krishna is gone again. So what's the destination of such a person who constantly goes back and forth and back and forth? Krishna comes and then the calamity is gone, Krishna is gone, and I'm where I was. Is that described in the Shastra somewhere?
It's in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I wish I could find that. It's one of my favorite verses. Actually, the destination of a person is not that bad. And I really like that verse because it's so hope-giving. And essentially, what is said is that the destination of a person, once you have called out to Krishna with such faith, Krishna does not leave that person, even if then they are still struggling with their material conditionings and habits and all of the things that happen and come with these bodies. That is to be expected. And that is what I think that we don't think of. We have decided that Krishna's personality should be like people personalities. And our personality is you get a very insufficient number of tries. You get maybe 1, 2, 3 strikes. Let's see. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. But Krishna still continues to address that individual as my devotee. My devotee. My devotee. Krishna says you don't lose that identity. Krishna's mentality is not like people mentalities where you get 3 strikes and then you're out. Krishna says the mistakes are to be expected, right? Many, many births you have taken. I can remember them all, but you cannot. O conqueror of the enemy. But the purport for me of that verse really is that Krishna remembers seeing us at all of our worsts. We think, oh, you saw us at our worst. He's like, you think you only have one worst? So many worsts were had. And yet Krishna has seen us through all of them. And he remembers them. And still he says, but my devotee always has the opportunity to become glorious. My devotee, once having called out my name with faith, is forever glorious, even if you still struggle with material contaminations, because we're simply jivas. And one of the interesting things to know is I used to go through that struggle growing up, but why does it take that kind of heart-wrenching squeeze from material nature to make us remember Krishna? And as I was sitting here, I was thinking, because if everything is nice, you don't mean it. When everything is fine, we don't mean it. And the proof that we don't mean it, and that it's almost impossible to mean it when everything is fine, is Shikshastakam. Just about every verse of Shikshastakam has some lamentation. Mahaprabhu is never sitting easy. And this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is Krishna himself, but he's never sitting easy with his devotional service. Oh my Lord, the world is vacant in your absence. And somehow one moment feels like yugas are passing. My body is burning. God was never just chilling out in terms of devotional service. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing us constantly, the road's not going to be easy. When it's easy, we don't mean it. Our view of following in the footsteps of the gopis, following in the footsteps of these wonderful ladies who gave up everything for Krishna, is that there's always going to be a heart on fire with longing. It has to be uncomfortable. Then we mean it. Then it means something back to Krishna. Karen, tell me something.
Hare
Wow.
Krishna.
Karen.
I just wanted to share that I have, I maybe I need some clarity in my thinking or my understanding about this, because I had the experience or the belief or whatever that when I first came to Krishna consciousness and I was in New York and I was going to all these fantastic kirtans and I was kind of learning about Krishna and, you know, the whole world of Krishna consciousness, I felt elated. I felt like completely like high, you know, like I was so over the moon all the time. You know, people would have these, like, the power went off in my building one time and this girl's freaking out. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. Like, I just, like, nothing was affecting me. And then I don't know. I felt like I got drawn in other material things, or I went, you know, I met a man, I had a family, all this stuff. And I got detached, and then things got really, really bad. And I had completely forgot about Krishna in that really desperate situation I was going through. And it wasn't till just I was in Switzerland and I was randomly going to see somebody on the other lake, and I saw a Hare Krishna monk, or, you know, like a sannyasi, and I was like, where is your temple? And that's like kind of how I came back in the middle of a really difficult time. And then again, like, it took me a while to get back into it. And then I was going through another crisis with losing my mom and everything. And that really did bring me in. It wrote me in this kind of way. But, like, I felt like that it was my separation that got me the calamities. Not that the calamities got me. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the initial introduction, like, it made me aware of devotion, and it made me feel gratitude in my heart all the time, and devoted and curious and all this stuff. But then forgetting about it and getting distracted and going off in material things brought me, like, when I was separated from Krishna, it brought me calamities. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and so I think that's the difference between the two separations. There's an apparent separation, meaning a surface level, outward looking separation, and then there's the internal separation of the heart. And so what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows is the internal separation of the heart feeling like, oh, the reality of my situation is I'm stuck, plopped here in this material world, and I say that I love Krishna, and yet it hasn't broken my heart enough because I'm still here living happily in this material world. There were people who would say to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have such love for Krishna. He says, don't say that. Because if I had such love for Krishna, how would it be that I am here and my Krishna is not here and I've still been living day after day? Somehow or other, I've found some time in the day to not have to fill my mouth with the holy name of Krishna. Don't say I have love for Krishna, because if I had love for Krishna, I wouldn't have been able to live one single solitary moment without him. So the apparent separation is what happens when Krishna consciousness is a little bit like a Sour Patch candy. And you get levels of sour and then sweet and then sour and then sweet and then sour. And so when you first hear about it, your eyes are completely open to, wow, look at what all this devotion can do. And then Maya Devi says one thing to all of us. Are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want? Because I could probably give you something better. The separation, which is apparent, the surface level separation, is when we go, you're right. I think I have enough. I've got enough of hearing about the devotional stuff. Let me go and live a real life. That separation is the one where we're like, Maya Devi, I'm coming for you. Let me embrace you. She's like, are you sure you want to embrace me? I have a big trident and I like to stick people with it. And like, let me come, let me embrace you. And then we embrace her, and then she jabs us with her trident in the form of many, many fold miseries. And then we go, why would you do that? It's like, I warned you. I told you it was going to happen. I said, this is what I do. This is my nature. This is my job, my service, and her service, which took me a long time to understand. Her service is to make sure that no one disturbs her brother. And we've done it for lifetimes. Thank you, Jeffrey, for letting everybody know with the Sour Patch. Thank you. So her job is to make sure that nobody's bothering her brother, and we've done it for lifetimes. Saying, yes, I want you and nothing but you. And then through no fault of Krishna's, we go off on our own and we decide, but actually, I kind of want the riches in the heavens and my heavenly voice back. Maybe I'd like to be a Gandharva again. Let's try it out. But every time we turn around and life kicks us in the teeth and we say, never mind, I don't want the Gandharva body back. I want you. And Krishna gets excited. Yes, I'll come running. And now Maya Devi says, enough. No, you will not go running because those people are toxic. Like, we're the toxic friend now. Like, we are the toxic relationship that everybody warns everybody else about. We are the ones, we leave Krishna on red. We don't call back. We don't answer voice messages. We hardly send him a voice note. And when we do, we are incredibly distracted. We do all the work to go sit down and we're going to call Krishna for this japa meditation. And 30 seconds in, we're off thinking about everything else that has nothing to do with Krishna. And then when life doesn't go our way, the first person we blame is Krishna. Well, why would you do that to me? I didn't do anything to you. I was just living a really good life, being a good person. And I can't believe that you would have done this to me. What kind of God are you? You know what? Forget it. We are so eager to up and run at the slightest inconvenience. So now Maya Devi says, no, now I'll test. Because my Krishna is too soft-hearted. He runs after these devotees, but I don't even know if they've learned that they are devotees again yet. So now she's going to test us. And every time we're running, Maya, come, let's do it. She's like, okay, let's do it, but I like to jab people with my trident. That's what I do for fun. And I make targets out of them. And we're like, no problem, let's do it. And then she jabs us, and then we get mad. Not even at her, at Krishna. I'm trying to work on my spiritual maturity so that I'm not mad at anybody. And then I can just kind of look at it as the reality of my situation. And so far, for the past year, and that doesn't mean to say that I haven't been through things. I've been through a lot of things. But the most incredible thing is when I go through really rough things which send me to my knees. I remember that Gajendra, an elephant, was going through such harsh things with his elephant foot stuck in the mouth of an alligator, crocodile, whichever one. We can only know, depending upon if it says, see you later or after a while. No? Did I get that joke?
I'm not using your phone because I've been
That's how you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile. If it says see you later, alligator, or after a while. So he had his foot in the mouth of the crazed jaws of this beast. And so now he's trying to figure out what is happening. Demigods are coming saying, do you know how long it takes to get the Supreme Lord's attention? It takes millenniums. And you want him to come running for you? You're an elephant. You can't even give eloquent prayers. You're an elephant. And they're not the smartest. They're kind of gentle, but they're a little dumb. So now, like, you really think that God is going to come running? Better that you ask for help from us. And this elephant is saying, no, I don't want you. I only want my Krishna. And Gajendra comes to a point where he says, I understand. This is my karma. And that is when everything changes. The Supreme Lord swoops down, literally, saves the day, vanquishes this crocodile alligator and frees Gajendra. And Gajendra is offering up a lotus flower. That's it. And prayers within his elephant heart that are remembered from a previous birth. So I've been practicing it. And I can tell you that it actually does work. When life knocks us to our knees, because it will, that is one thing that we are sure of. That is fact. If we can step outside of it and go, oh, this is my karma. This is my situation for being in this material world. And I don't want to be here anymore. Oh, Krishna, save me. Then, when the heart is pulverized into dust, then when you add the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam on top of it, it gets infused into every crevice of the heart. Bits of the heart that it never would have been able to touch if it were always whole. Because best thing is, if you crush something into powder, then you mix it with water, then it's fully dissolved in it. Whereas if it was still the same rock, it would take forever. It would hardly reach all of those pieces. So, when Maya Devi does her service and she pulverizes my heart, it is in those moments where I've actually decided, wait, for like almost 40 years in a month, oh my God, I've been running to more material world stuff. What if I ran and I poured the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam on whatever situation this was? What would I get? I can tell you, over the past year and a half of trying it, there are a lot of tears. Who cares? Offer them. Mahaprabhu also offered his tears. There are a lot of heart-wrenching moments where you want to yell out for Krishna. There is absolutely nothing that you can't offer Krishna in terms of your emotions. If you're angry, no problem. Tell Krishna about how angry you are. Just don't get angry with him. I've been trying to recondition myself to remember, actually, none of this is his fault. This is material world terms and conditions. And I'm the one who signed away on the app before even reading them through. I said, fine. And then I update my app every year. It's kind of crazy. I don't even know why I keep committing to the app of the material world. And then every year they're like, would you like to update it? And I'm like, sure, give me another update. And they're like, would you like to accept all the terms and conditions? And then I scroll through and I go, accept. And then it reboots. And then when things happen, I'm like, seriously? This? And each new update comes with its own set of problems, you know? Because the older you get, the more problems and they're different ones. They're not the same ones. So then you think, I already learned from that problem. And then Maya Devi says, it's fine. I have another one. I have an unlimited amount of learning lessons for you. It doesn't mean that we're not learning. It just means that Maya Devi is constantly asking us, are you sure? Because now she's doing the work of lifetimes. Lifetimes we've been stringing Krishna along, giving him breadcrumbs of love, being the toxic partner in the relationship. And now Maya Devi says, okay, now you say you're ready, so now I'm going to figure out all of the lifetimes of toxicity in this one. Because you've decided you don't want to do this anymore. Great, so let's final exam, you know, all at once. It's not always great, but as a person who just went through surgery, there was a hard way and an easy way, and the easy way was less invasive, but it did come with kind of like a long recovery time. And Krishna consciousness is like that. We can do an easier surgery and our recovery time could be over lifetimes. Or we could do the seemingly less invasive surgery, which is harder on the body. Our recovery is intense and we feel like it's hell and your organs are on fire. But it's only because the outcome, you get to really understand what you want. And that's what I would wager to guess is that, Karen, you started to understand what you really wanted real fast. And you are now willing to say your boundaries and what you will no longer do in order for what you don't want. And so now you are guarding your devotion, I think, in a much more stringent way than you would have before. Had you not gone away as you say, I don't think it ever happened. You know, Krishna doesn't think that either. Had you not ventured out and then ventured back in and said, never mind, I saw it, never mind, I take it back, no more. And it just serves as a reminder, right, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, we don't want to do that anymore. Anyhow, thank you for staying with me through my long-winded answer.
Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. Just maybe very briefly, could you answer Sadhvi Didi's question? She has one in the chat.
How to understand 424.35. What is 424.35?
And
And
then there's a liberation
if it is
in the
what I
next.
think it is, I'm going to have some questions.
If I may humbly ask, how do a person who have suffered all its life and do not have anyone to show love, how do the person understand what one is? What is love and how to love? And is it wrong to do everything according to Shastra, like follow the principles and chant in 16 rounds without knowing what love is?
These are huge questions. These are not even small questions. So 424.35 is within the part of the Bhagavatam known as Rudra Gita. Lord Shiva is instructing the Prachetas in how to finally see God. And so this verse says, my dear Lord, you are the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration, as well as the master of all disintegration, the predominating deity named Sankarshan, and the master of all intelligence, known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The whole universe is maintained by the integrating power of the Supreme Lord, who is known in that capacity by the name Sankarshan. The material scientists, I love this one. That's why I'm reading this purport, because I really like this purport. The material scientists may have discovered the law of gravity, which maintains the integration of objects within the material energy, yet the master of all integration can create devastation by the disintegrating, blazing fire emanating from his mouth. A description of this can be found in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein the universal form of the Lord is described. The master of integration is also the destroyer of this world by virtue of his disintegrating energy. Sankarshan is the master of integration and disintegration, whereas Pradyumna, another feature of Lord Vasudeva, is responsible for universal growth and maintenance. The word Sukshmaya is significant because within this gross material body there are subtle material bodies, namely mind, intelligence, and ego. The Lord in his different features, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Sankarshan, maintains both the gross and subtle material elements of this world. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the gross material elements are earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and the subtle material elements are mind, intelligence, and ego. All of them are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and this will be further explained in the following verse. So, how to understand it? Krishna is everywhere. Krishna is within everything. Even the idea that we have of gravity. Srila Prabhupada gives a lecture, and he goes in depth about what the scientists call gravity is nothing but the joining force of Lord Sankarshan. He said, what you're feeling is nothing but Anantadev's power, as he's holding all of these planets on his hood like just one mustard seed. And so Srila Prabhupada goes into how the scientists are calling all of these things, and that is just an apparent understanding, right? A surface level understanding. And when we get really deeply into understanding, even Lord Brahma, he says, the Lord had already put all of the ingredients in place. I was simply like an engineer. Like the Lord created everything. I just put the things together. It's like if you have somebody and you're like, oh my God, you are the maker of the iPhone. They're like, I didn't come up with that technology. I just put the pieces where they told me to put them. But we're like, but no, it was you. Like, no, it wasn't me. I didn't come up with the technology. I simply put together all the things. I was following the manual for the putting together of the whole iPhone. And so we see that Lord Brahma's humility is described. Srila Prabhupada is understanding and helping us understand that we should really take a look. He says that many people often think that the mind of the scientist is very fascinating and wonderful, and they praise the mind of the scientist. But people never stop to think, who made the mind of the scientist? We just kind of take it on fact that brilliant mind. Who created the brilliant mind of the scientist? And so Srila Prabhupada is always stressing, this is Krishna. Krishna, when they saw a beautiful sunset with Srila Prabhupada, they said, look at that beautiful sunset. Srila Prabhupada said, if you think that's beautiful, you should see the artist. It's the same Krishna who, with a love, reawakened all of us for the purpose of service. So yes, the Lord is the cause of everything. The Lord is the cause of dissolution. The Lord is the cause of creation. The Lord is the cause of everything. And anything else that is said to be working is simply an apparent consideration. They're simply putting together the pieces on the outside. But really, our Supreme Lord is doing everything. As we go through these prayers, if you care to go through them, Lord Shiva takes a look at so many of the different deities. And so if your mind is giving you troubles, he gives you which of those Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, he gives you which of those 4 to pray to. If your mind is giving you trouble. If you want eloquent speech, he lets you know which one to pray to. Basically, the big thing is, if there is anything in this world that you want to pray about, we should go to Krishna for it. Because ultimately, we have to go through Krishna anyway. There's no way around Krishna. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand. There is no way in, around, or through Krishna. All roads will eventually lead back to Krishna. And you think you're going this way, and then somehow or other you take the long way, and you wind up right back at Krishna. And you wonder, how did I get here? I thought that I was done with this bhakti stuff. Like, Krishna's a really demanding Lord. I thought I was gonna go and worship Lord Shiva. And the Prachetas also. We were gonna go worship Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva says, oh, no problem. Let me give you the exact song to sing, and that will give you the direct darshan of Shri Krishna. And then all roads lead back to Shri Krishna. So no matter what we think we're doing, our Krishna's in everything. And so if we see the creation of beautiful things in our lives, our Krishna's behind it. And if we see the dissolution of things in our lives, our Krishna's behind it. The maturity is allowing ourselves to continue to love Krishna even through the dissolution. Thinking, but maybe my Krishna is breaking down something that would have been detrimental for me. And if something is detrimental for me, that hurts the heart of my Krishna. Because Krishna says to Arjuna many times in Bhagavad Gita, which took me several readings to realize how sweet it was. He says to Arjuna, you can't run away from this battlefield. They're going to call you ill names. They're going to talk about you badly. They're going to say all kinds of horrible, nasty things about you. Do you know how painful that would be for me? Krishna is saying, my job is to be there for my devotee. My job is to feel the most for my devotee. And so now you have to fight. Because if you do something that is completely the opposite of your Kshatriya nature, 1, you're going to fight anyway. Because that is your nature. And 2, if you don't, they will blaspheme you. And the blaspheming of Krishna's devotee hurts him more than anything. So sometimes I think, what if what Krishna is breaking down in my life is not simply an inconvenience for me, but what if this was something that was going to be to my detriment? And if it's to my detriment, that hurts my Krishna. So me keeping with my bhakti is also still devotional service. Somehow or other, it all just goes to bring pleasure to the heart of Shri Krishna. So my understanding of that verse is all roads lead back to Krishna. And how does a person who has suffered all their life not have anyone to show love? How does a person understand what one is, what is love, and how to love? And is it wrong to do everything according to Shastra? No. That's why we have Shastra the way it is. That's why we have Vaidhi Bhakti, which is following rules and regulations, to bring us to a place where we start to understand that what we've seen here is not love. There are very few of us in this material world who actually know what love is. We're dealing with a society of people who have no idea what love is, evidenced by the way that we treat God all the time. There are some saintly people who have an idea of what love is, and we hear of them across so many traditions. So many traditions. Islamic traditions, Christian traditions. When people understand a divine love, it transcends any of the boundaries of modern day religion that we give language to. It all becomes about love of God. We learn where to properly repose our love. We learn who is a repository and a reservoir of that love and pleasure. We start to learn who is this being? We start to realize, actually, what I thought was not love. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes it's a contract agreement. Sometimes it's, oh, I'll say I love you if you give me this. If you treat me this way, you're my friend and I love you. And if you don't treat me that way, I walk away and we'll never be friends again. Is that love? Can't be. We start to really get an idea of what love is, but only through Shastra. And so Shastra is there to help us really break down the pieces of the heart. But the good thing is, if you feel as though you're a person who's only suffered all their lives, as I said before, you could be in one of the best situations that anyone has ever been in on the face of the planet. Because so many people in Srimad Bhagavatam suffer their entire lives. And their entire lives, like multiple lives, before they come to the point where their heart has been pulverized into powder. Then they pour on the nectar of devotion. And next thing you know, all of that pulverization of the heart, it's completely dissolved into the nectar of Krishna's glories. So it's not bad. Actually, that's what we're supposed to do, especially when we don't know what love is. We have no idea what love is. We have to go on the authority of Shastra. What is love? What is the greatest thing that a person can do? The greatest act, the greatest religion, the greatest dharma? Savai Pungsang Paro Dharmo. What is the greatest thing that we can do? Devotional service. Loving devotional service. Unmotivated, uninterrupted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Adokshaja. So we have to go through Shastra. We have to go through the rules. We have to get there with the discipline that helps us end our material world addiction before we can come to the place where we even start to be able to understand when someone tells us, I have seen what love is about, let me help you. And be sure that there will be spiritual teachers who will come and they will say, I have seen what love is all about, let me help you. Take the help. We don't like to accept the help, especially when gurus are concerned. But we don't say that when we need a chemistry tutor. Right? We go into chemistry class as a professor, and we're like, I'm not going to listen to you. I can figure out chemistry all on my own. We don't say that. We simply accept what the teacher is telling us, right? Somehow we have faith enough to accept that. And that is what I urge us to do with our spirituality in truth. And don't worry about being like blindsided and cheated. Pray to Krishna. Pray to Krishna. I would like a real teacher and I don't want to be cheated. And Krishna will never let you be cheated. Krishna will show you. Once you've created a bond with me, that bond is never ending. Don't worry. So don't feel alone, because none of us know what love is. I know some teachers who do. They know what love is. And I've been trying to stay close to them and find out what they know ever since. So that is my hope and my dream for all of us, that we can simply stay close to the one at whose feet all the other masters sit. That we can somehow stay close to these saints and sadhus, these people who know what love is about, and then somehow learn from them.
Wow. Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. for this 1.5 hours worth of love.
Wow.
There was a wake-up call in every sentence. I feel very sober after this class, Acyuta Gopi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Acyuta Gopi,
Jai.
Devidasi ki jai. All of the wonderful devotees on this call, ki jai. Have a wonderful day. We'll love you. Love is an art. Master it. Be what you think the world is lacking. Be it. Give it to Krishna and come again tomorrow for another class. Shrimad Bhagavatam never ends. Hare Krishna. Martine, can you say Hare Krishna? Martine?
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna,
Perfect.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Great. Wonderful, Martine. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.